Today's video is just going to be a quick little life update video. I am specifically going to be talking about the hospital because that is where I just was. So trigger warning for this video, I am going to be talking about suicide. I will not be going into any specific details, but if this is something that is triggering to hear someone talk about suicide and hospitals, please don't watch this video. But if you're interested in learning more and hearing a little bit more about my life, my experience, then please feel free to stick around. So I know I've made a lot of videos about the hospital on my channel before, but the reason I wanted to make a video this time specifically was because this is the first time that I went to the hospital through calling 911. So this was the first time I had to talk to police officers and ride in an ambulance to the hospital, and I was absolutely terrified of it. I cried a lot before the ambulance and police got there because I was so nervous about it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that experience here, just in case anyone is nervous about that too. They can hear a little bit about how the process is and how it's not quite as scary as I thought it was going to be, and hopefully feel a little bit more comfortable with it. So basically what happened is Saturday was when I ended up going to the hospital. I went, I have a therapy session on Saturdays. So I went to my therapy session, and for some reason, we ended up moving my therapy session. Typically on Saturdays, it is early afternoon. We ended up moving it to late afternoon, and this was fantastic. I don't know that I would be making this video if I had kept my appointment time at the original time, because I don't think I would have been in a place to talk about what was going on and be as honest as I was. And that's what, led to me going to the hospital, which ended up keeping me alive, which is a good thing. So I'm really, really glad that my appointment got moved. Typically, I get really stressed out when my appointments have to be moved, but this was definitely a good one. So basically what happened was I went to my session and I initially started just kind of talking about how I was feeling, which was extremely depressed, extremely suicidal, just awful. And I was really, really honest about that, which was good because it's hard for me to be honest about these things. But this time I was really honest about what was going on and how I was feeling. And I had driven myself to therapy, but I told my therapist that if I got in the car to drive myself home, I wasn't going to make it there. So we tried a couple things before we called 911. We tried like the local crisis line for the town that we were in. Nobody answered. We tried another crisis line for the state that I'm in, and no one answered that either, which is like really frustrating. So unfortunately, we didn't have any other choice except to call 911. And that's when I started to get really scared because my therapist was like, they're going to send police first, then they're going to send an ambulance. So like, you're going to have to talk to the police, which might be a little bit overwhelming and scary, which it was, but it wasn't that terrible. So we called and then we just waited for a little while. So the police got there pretty quick. I don't remember the length of times of things when I'm in that state. I can't even comprehend them. So it didn't feel like very long when the police showed up, and it was two very big male police officers, which immediately made me nervous. They were super nice though, and for a while they were trying to get me separate from my therapist, which I understand was just them doing their job, making sure that I could speak freely. And they had some questions for him as well. But it made me really nervous because I didn't like being alone with the police officers just because I didn't know them. I was really, I was just kind of nervous about it. So thankfully, after a little while, my therapist was able to just say, like, I'm going to come in and sit with them. So he came in and he sat with me, which made it a lot easier for me to talk to the police. And basically what they did was they kind of made a police report of just like what was going on. So they asked my therapist what was happening. They asked me what was happening. I explained that I was suicidal. They asked me what my suicide plan was. So I explained all of that to them. They wrote it all down, and then called it in for an ambulance to come. One of the things that the police did that made things really helpful for me, I think, was that one of the officers in particular kind of took me aside because it was really overwhelming kind of being around everybody. So he took me aside and he said, I know that I'm a complete stranger to you, and you don't have to tell me anything, but if you would like to explain more of what's going on and how you're feeling, I will listen to you." And that was super nice of him. So I did end up telling him more than I think I would have if he hadn't said those things to me. So I was really thankful for that. And yeah, he was great. Both of the police officers were great, but him in particular, like, that was really nice. And that was pretty much it for the police part of this. So after that, we just waited for the ambulance. It didn't take too long, maybe 15 minutes about. So once the ambulance got there, the people that work on the ambulance, whose names I am forgetting, um, came in and they basically asked me the same questions the police asked, kind of what was going on. I was suicidal, what was my plan, that kind of stuff. Asked my therapist. And then they brought me to the ambulance. I just walked in and sat in the ambulance. They didn't have to like put me on a stretcher or anything because I could just walk myself in. Um, as I was getting into the ambulance, my therapist said a couple like really nice things to me, which made me feel a lot better because I always feel really bad when I go to the hospital and I always feel like I'm doing the wrong thing. So he reminded me that I did a really good job asking for help and that this was a good thing for me. So I really appreciated that. The most awkward part of the whole thing was the ambulance ride. It was about 10 minutes, and it was just me sitting in the back with one of the ambulance workers, just nobody talking. It was just really awkward. But that was probably the worst part, which, again, not bad at all since I was terrified. And then once I got to the hospital, the process was the same as it usually is. Check in. I went to the emergency department first. I was there for a little bit, and then I was moved to the crisis unit for a little bit, and then I was brought up to the actual inpatient floor. This was the fastest I've ever been admitted. Typically, I'm not admitted till the following day. This time I got admitted. I got there on Saturday, and I got admitted on Saturday, which I was very thankful for because I hate spending time in the emergency department and the crisis unit and not knowing what's happening. So I was really glad that I got moved really fast, because that is not normal. But that's pretty much it. I stayed for about 5 days. I don't think it was long enough. Unfortunately, insurance issues, I couldn't stay any longer, so I had to leave, but that's okay. I'm set up with my therapist, I'm set up with my psychiatrist, so I have appointments coming up, that I know will help me kind of manage and get through since I'm still feeling pretty terrible. But I'm alive, and I'm alive because I went to the hospital, so I'm really glad that I did that, and now I can make this video. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave those in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.